Tom, it looks like you're muted.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Yeah, we should have everybody muted for the main part of the meeting so that any background noise doesn't come across it, or so that when we say the Scout Oath, it's not we're not hearing 27 people do it. So thanks everybody for coming. I'm going to do a couple of things. We're going to do some quick introductions and tell you the basic format that we're going to try and do for these meetings. So first off, we are here to help. And the point of Roundtable is to share information with you guys, to learn from each other, and then to make connections. We're trying to do this by Zoom every other month. And tonight we've had a pretty good attendance. Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people in this room. And that is almost 3 times the average number that we were getting last year. So thank you everybody for coming. I am going to send out a survey to you guys. There's a list of topics that the National has given us, and I can show you guys cool little videos and see their suggestions, and then they have prompting questions, and some of that seems valuable, but I don't know. When I was planning my meetings, I would always look at what they said, and I would suggest to the boys, hey, pick one thing from their topic that seems most relevant and go with that. And if we can accomplish that one thing, then I feel like we've won. So I'm going to send you guys a survey, and the topics that we will cover at these meetings will be whatever gets the most votes. However, tonight we're going to start with a topic. It was the #1 topic at the National Jamboree last summer, and it's kind of been on everybody's mind. And that is, how are you and your units doing a year after COVID is essentially over? There's been a lot of common experiences that people have had, and the point of meeting with each other here and sharing information is so that you can tell us what has worked for you and what do you need help with. So having said that, I'm going to say, Missy, if we want to start with you, we'll do a brief introduction, tell them what troop you're from. It would be helpful in your name if you put what troop you were from, if you can update that. When you come to the meetings, that would be great. I don't necessarily want you to have that as your Zoom tag always. However, it's kind of cool to be able to look at that and know where you're from. So Misty, feel free.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everybody. Misty Allen, Troop 162. We're located down here in Jamestown, New York. Talking about Jambo, I did staff at Camp Mers this summer, so I'm had a lot of the staff come back after Jambo and stuff. So really cool. We actually talked about it during staff. Yeah, COVID was a big thing for us. It's a double-edged sword. Like, the kids really liked that we got on virtually during COVID, and they kind of didn't want to give it. Okay, I should say more the parents didn't want to give up the just sit at home and virtually do it. But the kids, biggest things I saw during a board review were they liked coming back together and engaging with each other, but they want to do the fun stuff all the time. That, hey, let's go to the ice rink or let's go eat together, but then want to do everything virtually. So trying to get them back into hands-on, face-to-face with people, because I think they're still stuck on the virtual option.
Great. I would 100% agree. I mean, I think everybody is sick of Zoom meetings. Although I will say that for Roundtable, it makes sense because most of us would have to drive over an hour to get there. And it saves us all a lot of time. I know there's some difficulties with it, but
absolutely.
I'm sorry, Jen, I'm going to go to you next.
Hi, I'm Jen Eschenbach from Troop 126 Mayville. COVID was interesting for our troop, mainly because my son had just crossed over into the troop literally right when COVID had happened, like a week before COVID happened. So our first, almost year in the troop was different because we couldn't have like that exposure of the meetings as well. But our troop adjusted well. We are lucky in that we actually have kind of our own camp. So when we did do camp outs, we did it there outside. Kids did individual tenon We do have a couple cabins there that they used to camp in, but because of COVID, we had gotten rid of that. So we just did the tents outside. So we still were able to meet some, just not indoors and in close spaces. But we may do, and I don't think it hurt us too much. I don't think we lost too much interest. But now we kind of seem to be back in the swing of things.
Great to hear. Nick, how about you?
Hi, I'm Nick Valentine. I am actually new. I took a break. I'm based in Duke Center, PA, Troop 413. My son crossed over, just like Jen's son, right at 2020, and we ended up taking a year off. So we started back up in 2021, and I wanted a lot of the scouts in this troop have either aged out or ranked out, have gotten Eagle and stuff. So we're in a rebuilding phase. So I don't know really how the troop was before COVID. So I can't really say what's different, but I'm just looking for advice and hoping to help my troop out and the scouts.
Great. Nick, what troop are you from again?
413.
And where's that out of?
Duke Center.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mike, over to you.
I'm Mike Kelly. I'm actually with the council board, also a commissioner. Excuse me. And I was fortunate to be at the Jamboree this summer. I will tell you it was a great time. And I'll also say that if you get an opportunity to go, if you haven't, I recommend you do so. What we found, and this goes back to what Tom was saying, hot topic, as a staff member, one of the things that was noticeable was we had a ton of scouts there that just didn't have any leadership training. And this is not a knock on the scouts. They were all great kids. But with COVID, we weren't out, we weren't doing things, we were meeting virtually or not meeting at all. And you expect your older scouts to be leaders, and they weren't. The Jamboree was kind of like herding cats. And again, the kids were great kids, but they were just they were just going in circles. And I think that's because of COVID. We weren't out there, we weren't doing the things that we've done before. There were no scouts at this event that had been to a Jamboree before. The last one was in 17. World Scouting was in 19. All those kids have aged out. And this is, again, it's not a criticism, but it just brought up the fact that, what are we going to do moving forward to get these kids caught up? We've got 15-year-old kids that are acting like 12-year-old kids. Nothing wrong with the kids. They just haven't had the opportunities. We had some leader problems like that also. Leaders that hadn't been in a situation like that before. I will say that the brief time I spent with our Allegheny Highlands contingent was quite refreshing. They seem to be quite under control as far as I could tell. But across the board, we lacked leadership from the youth end, and to some extent from the adult end also. So, but it was a great time. I know we can correct that part of it with a little bit of hard work, and that's what I got.
Great. Mark, never met you before. You're up.
Okay, hi. Nice to meet you. As a committee chair, I'm not day-to-day involved, but I can tell you that from staying in contact with our troops leader and assistant leader, several assistant leaders, they really soldiered through COVID wonderfully. I credit them completely with keeping the momentum going and encouraging the scouts to stick with it. And the troop is actually growing this year, and so I think we're happy. I don't know what in particular that maybe was done other than just frequent Zoom meetings followed up by individually going out to to camp in their own backyards and such. I heard stories, and I heard them from the scouts, and they enjoyed it. They had fun. So,
Okay. I guess one common experience that I've heard mentioned several times is parents are maxed out and nobody wants to volunteer. Nobody wants to step up and do stuff. Todd's laughing. Yes, he knows that experience well. And it just seems that every organization needs stuff, and every parent is saying, I don't want to do anything. I just want to drop my kid off and have it all provided for me. That is kind of a nice thing about football and sports. However, scouting has to be a little more hands-on, especially when we look at the sustainability of our leaders. So, Todd, you're next up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark. You got another?
Before we pass by what you just said, I think it's really important that from the committee down, I don't know, that we really emphasize we recruit a scout, but then we meet with the family and we emphasize that they train, that they understand this is a program. It's not a play date. It's not daycare. We need their involvement, and we need them to take some of the training and understand the program.
Absolutely. There's a job for everybody, and no job is too small. Maybe it's just helping to drive to a camp out. Maybe it's just giving us the extra adult supervision that we need for an event, because once they experience the event with their scouts, then usually they get hooked. And I think as a committee chair, that's a great way to get people involved.
That was exactly what happened with a couple of our scouts. Their parents were like, well, yeah, she wants to do it. That'd be nice. That'd be fun. And now 3 years later, they are on board 100% because they saw the benefits.
Absolutely. All right, Todd, you're up.
My name is Todd Profit, and I am on day 2 as Scoutmaster for Troop 267. Ran my first meeting last night, so that was a lot of fun. I switched over to the committee chair, but like Tom said, we went through an exhaustive search. I mean, I signed on in January as committee chair, and my first job was to find a Scoutmaster, and we couldn't find it. I think part of lots of reasons why, but ultimately I stepped up. I'm going to do it for a year. But coming out of COVID, yeah, we had really got thin on our leadership. We lost a lot of assistant scoutmasters who probably could have naturally, stepped up into those roles. So we didn't have a bench to go to. So that was one of the big things. The other thing that we've been dealing with recently, this is kind of COVID, but it's my understanding from talking to Tom that I think this is also cyclical. Because we weren't doing things together, a lot of those scouts that came in, we were doing a lot of an individual advancement. So like parents were helping their kids out, and we really had to sit down and say, no, we need to be doing advancement through the troop, through patrols, and really trying to reestablish that patrol method with scouts who came in at, during COVID where they had to do it with mom and dad. They had to go on their hikes with them or do their service hours with them. So that's probably one of our big challenges right now, is resetting that.
Let me add a note to that. We definitely want scouts to do things independently, but there's very much a feeling that helicopter parents are really pushing their kids to do this. And there's some instances where, I don't know, we're very concerned about what's really being done. And one of the goals of scouts is to have them meet with different merit badge counselors and different adults. And just because they had an experience with their parents does not mean they should earn a merit badge. I think is a way to surmise that. So, and that's definitely a problem, because that is an expectation that sort of COVID did set up. So that is a good problem to outline and visit. Rich, a lot of these people might not know you.
Well, I'm former advancement chairman for the council, probably going to be advancement chairman again. I don't know for sure what's going on, but what is the question that we're answering? Because I came late.
How did COVID change scouts? What have we seen
Okay.
in troops and units and things, and what have you experienced?
Okay, I can answer that from the advancement aspect of it is having to change Eagle border reviews over from being in person to Zoom border reviews. Curtis Studinsky and I both felt that was very very much a disadvantage, because when you're sitting there with them in person, you get to read all the body language. There's a lot of things that are there that you wouldn't see with the Zoom meetings and stuff. The Zoom meetings were kind of handy, and at other times they weren't. There were times when you really couldn't hear what was going on. It's an Eagle border review. You need to know what's going on. So now we're back to doing them in person, and that has been a definite improvement. The most interesting thing that I saw on it, though, is we thought with COVID that the number of youth that we were going to have advancing to the rank of Eagle in our council was going to drop. And we found that to not be true. Actually, 2019, I think it was, we had 35 Eagles in the council. The national average for Eagle Scouts is 5%. Our council has been running 7% and 8%, right along steady for a few years now. We're going to be 8% this year. And so we thought, okay, we were great during COVID, but we thought, okay, the next couple of years after COVID, that's when we're going to see the decline in the number of Eagles. It has not hit. So what that tells me is that these youth were motivated to do these things on their own, that they didn't wait around for the troop to have to be able to do things. They were motivated enough that they went out and were doing the advancement requirements on their own and getting them, getting them signed and everything. Otherwise, they wouldn't have got to the point where they could be an Eagle now. So that was very encouraging, because to me, that meant the scouting program was working. I agree that the patrol method and unit advancement or group advancement is good, but individual advancement is actually more the way the program is set up to run. If you look at the merit badge program aspect of it, especially, that's very individual. I have a lot of problem when I have troops that are offering merit badges. I'll just pick one, horsemanship as a troop merit badge, where everybody in the troop is working on it. That's not the way the program is designed to be run. And I think that we need to look at what just happened and say, wow, these kids figured out what a lot of us as adults were ignoring.
Yeah, I would agree. It's and Miss Hellers, Troop 261. I'm sorry, 621. Olean.
Yeah, my husband's out with Troop 619 tonight, so it's just me. But 621 out of Olean. We took over the troop in 2019, just a few months before COVID hit. So after a couple months of figuring out what we were going to do, we kept meeting because we couldn't meet inside. The new meeting spot became our house outside. We've got lots of property, and we focused on all the outdoor skills where everybody could be properly socially distanced. So we had a lot of young people, did a lot of fire building, orienteering, anything that didn't require anybody but an individual to work in their own little spot. We actually increased numbers during COVID because the Cuba troop folded. So we picked up anybody that was still in Cuba that wanted to stay in scouting. We picked up 3 kids from Portville because they weren't doing much during COVID. So we actually grew. Since summer camp got canceled, we made our own summer camp. Everybody brought their own tent. Everybody brought their own food. Everybody had their own spot. Did kayaking, and we did 2 different hikes. We did some fire building challenges. Again, all that outdoor, individual, can stay away from each other type of things. Kids loved it so much. We've been pretty much doing an extra week of camping every summer since then, doing our own kind of little thing. So we just kind of focused on anything outdoors where we could stay apart and kept going and found success.
When I took over Troop 267 in Fredonia, Chris Eichmann, the former scoutmaster, one of the best scoutmasters I've ever seen, said troops that camp every month, and we'll say 10 out of 12 months, have good programs, period. It evolves out of that. So the fact that you were able to focus on camping and everything is really good. And setting up that expectation, even if it's only 3 scouts, we're going camping. When we set a date, we're there. And it'll get you through the lean times because the program is really built on that. Olga, popcorn kernel extraordinaire.
I'm Olga, poker coordinator. This is my 2nd year. This year is really good compared with the past year because it's not COVID. We can sell door to door and go out.
Now, Olga, I've been at the Music at the Pier the past 2 concerts, and I have seen you and the Scouts there both times. How much did you guys sell there?
Only 2 boys go out that days, and each one is sell about $700.
$700 at each
Yes.
night, or 700 total?
No, 700 each.
Wow, that is incredible.
Mhm.
So, everybody, think about what event is coming up. I mean, in Fredonia, we just had Red, White, and Blues this past weekend. That'd be a great opportunity. I don't know if the Scouts were out for that. They mentioned the dollar store, setting up in front of a dollar store. I know Troop 267, we're lucky to have Walmart and set up there, and that is just gangbusters. It really is wow, the amount of money. So finding those places where we can get out and sell popcorn so that the kids can fund their own program is, you know, I don't know. There's a hack there that we can figure out, and
it is easy. It is easy to sell. Is the boys say the correct words? Okay. I have 2, I think 4 boys that sold more than 2,000.
Wow.
Yes. And they only go to 4 or 5 days out. That's it. 2 hours each one, and that's it.
Wow. It's incredible. And I mean, part of it's the location that we're at. But at the same time, part of it's just some of these kids are real go-getters. Gina from Troop 628. I'm sorry, 628.
Hi, both myself and my husband TJ are here. We've been involved in scouting a while, and our kids a long while. Our youngest son just crossed over to Troop 628 last year in August. So we went through COVID with the pack. We kept meeting for the most part. For a little bit, we did Zoom calls, but then we went to, if anybody's comfortable coming, come and we'll do something. And we did that for a while. I think the hardest part about COVID is that the troop and the pack both were having trouble, keeping kids in through the whole thing. And our troop aged out. So we've only got a couple older boys in the troop now. So there's a lot of learning and training going on with these younger guys.
And that is a problem that some troops run into. You'll get it. They'll be top heavy. There'll be too many older scouts because, poor recruiting years or most of us experienced COVID. I know we had 9 scouts cross over from Cub Scouts, and we were down to 3 within months because of COVID. And then there's this gap there that we're experiencing. And those older scouts are leaders. And, you look ahead to who's going to be the senior patrol leader next spring. Can you're leading me to one of the most important positions I feel in the troop. And it counts in terms of a leadership position for life and for Eagle, and it is the troop guide. If you are not utilizing a troop guide, if you have a troop that's large enough, the troop guide is your teacher. And he's the one that you really look to for training those new scouts when they cross over. Some troops will actually have the Weeblos start meeting with him. I guess they're called Arrow of Light Scouts in the fall, so that they get used to the sort of how the troop operates, essentially, and they start learning who the scouts are. And but when they cross over, that troop guide is essentially the patrol leader, because they know how the troop works. They know the culture, they know how advancement works, and that is the one who is going to lead them through those first 6 months to a year, really. And so really look into that. I shared in the chat a link to the ILST, which is Introduction to Leadership Skills for Troops. That is a really valuable course. If you're not running it, I suggest that you look at it and at least run sections of it. In particular, there is one section that describes all of the troop duties. And that is really important, because oftentimes the scouts don't even have any idea what a troop guide is. They don't understand the potential of these roles. There are cards there that you can print off that tells the scouts what jobs they should be doing. And then if you got them printed off at the end of their term, you can sign off on how well they did. It is a really fantastic program. We were able to run it twice, and I don't know that we've run it since then. It does take a lot of work to set it up, and it is a prerequisite for going to NYLT. I did also share a video link. I have not watched the video, but I imagine they're talking about the ins and out of the course. And I do know that there were several online things that have been set up so that they're probably easily findable. But as a component of a camp out, I think some of the skills that are taught in that training program would be really good if you were doing a winter camp out in a cabin, per se. Anyways, I'm sorry, is it Reno? Reno might not be there, so we'll skip over to Marianne Bowers.
So I'm the committee chair for Troop 267, and I think Todd and Tom have actually summarized our COVID concerns, or I feel like we're through the worst of it with COVID. Our numbers did dip quite substantially, but I think they're back really to where they were, or almost to where they were before. Our biggest concern, as Todd mentioned, is, sort of the helicopter parenting. I think since many of the kids we have in Scouts now crossed shortly after COVID or during COVID, I think they didn't get the perspective of the difference between Cubs and Boy Scouts, at least the parents. So we still have a lot of helicopter issues that we're dealing with, people wanting to make sure their own child gets what they need, but not necessarily working for the whole troop. So that's really the biggest issue I think that we're addressing as a troop. It probably goes to what Mike observed at Jambo, I think, is many of these kids are being led by their parents rather than leading themselves through Scouts. So I think that's probably part of the phenomenon that you were seeing at Jambo. So we're trying to break that a little bit, trying to make the kids be responsible for their own journey through Boy Scouts. And then the other issue that we're backtracking on are some of our Scout skills. I think we've learned through summer camp that maybe those aren't as strong as they would have been before COVID. So we're backtracking a little bit and reviewing Scout skills with our troop. I think those are our main COVID issues, but I feel like we're definitely through the worst of it and certainly on an upswing coming out of it now.
Excellent. Yeah, Scout skills, working on them, are the backbone of any camp out or scout activity. I know during COVID, we had a lot of like 1-day things where we just, as several people have described, met outside and we built campfires. We did this, we did that. We worked on knots in the freezing cold. And yeah, it's those scout skills. It's interesting. It's very much like Cub Scouts in that it is a progressive program and it's reinforced year after year. The first year you learn to tie these knots, then you forget them. Then you're reminded at summer camp. Then the next year you're teaching those skills and hopefully you remember them a little better. And usually by the third year, it's actually stuck. I got to tell you, one of the best things that we ever did was we were going to the Klondike Derby. And every year we had been the bridesmaid, and I was determined to win the Klondike Derby that year. And every year I told the scouts, we fell on our faces as far as knots went. So we had a knot tying game. I'm sure you've seen it at the scout stores where there's flashcards and it teaches you how to tie the knots. And I said to the senior patrol leader, I said, play this game with the scouts, and whoever wins gets to have their cell phone back for the weekend. And our senior patrol leader was extremely motivated because he had well, Olga, you knew him well. he had a clingy girlfriend, to say the least. Anyways, those kids just absolutely crushed it as far as the knots went. And we had one scout who had not really done anything in his scouting career to that point, who learned every single knot, and he was the champ the next day. And sure enough, we won the Klondike Derby because of that knot station. We knew how to do everything else, but we'd always failed at that one thing. So anytime we can turn it into a game and have the kids teach themselves using the EDGE method, absolutely, it's the way to go. So, okay, I've got one other thing. It actually came up today, and I think this is worth noting. When I was Scoutmaster of the troop, I really wanted to leave the information that I had on my computer with the other scouters. So we created a Google Docs folder for the troop. We created a Gmail for the troop. Everything is tied to that Scout 267, I think it's Scoutmaster267@gmail.com. And so everything that I had on my computer, I tried to upload into that Google Docs, and then I shared it with that Scoutmaster email plus the committee. Somebody asked me today, they texted me and said, hey, do you still have that 1 mile orienteering course thing that we did years ago? And I was like, yeah, I got it somewhere on my computer, but I bet you it's on that Google Doc as well. I have not had a chance to look yet, but if it's not there, Todd, I'm going to put it on there so that everybody can have it. But I would strongly suggest that as you do things, please upload it into the cloud, create a Scoutmaster at troop, whatever you're at. And then that is what you hand off when you hand off the position. Maybe it's the committee chair that, everybody can access it that way. You share it. And then all of those resources are not lost. I'm also going to suggest, Todd actually got me into this using the Google Sites to create a troop website. That's where you can share a lot of that information as well. I would suggest going to the Troop 267 website and look at what we've got there, because every time we find something cool, we try to put it on there, and it's a fairly comprehensive website. But it's free, and that's one of the keys. It's very easy to build. And if anybody needs help with it, I used to teach that class at the University of Scouting, but I'd be happy to work with you and show you how to do that. And I know that in less than an hour, we can get a site going for you if you need it. So
I think we talked at the last University Scouting meeting. I think I'm going to do that as well. If you want to, if you're free, I'd love to have you help me do it too.
Yeah, no, I can definitely help with that. Originally I had plans for the weekend, but then something happened and our plans fell through. So I'm oddly available for that weekend now. So I can help with registration or whatever, Doug and everybody else. So anyways, that's all I have for tonight. I am going to send out a survey, and I'm going to use, I guess, Google Forms, and then give you guys all of the topics and pick which ones you're most interested in. And that's what we're going to focus on, either with the monthly email or at the every other month meeting that we're doing. We are trying to do live at events that we're already at. Rather than have a live meeting that everybody has to drive an hour to, we said the best way to catch everybody is go to the events where people are. So we want to be at the University of Scouting so that people who have questions, we can talk there. Obviously the camporees and hopefully Monster Mash, we can be there and share. And one of the biggest points of this is they call it the parking lot moments, where two scouters are headed out and they strike up a conversation and they share what eventually is very valuable information as to how to solve what seemingly is a minor problem, but could prevent major problems. So look for everybody at these events. Tell everybody to come to Roundtable, and the more people we have here, the better. Hopefully this was a valuable meeting for you guys, and we'll go from there. Does anybody have anything to say? If not, we'll say good night, and we will see you at University of Scouting, hopefully.
Thank you very much.